With all due respect, my stress doesn't come from work. It comes from you, I said firmly, my voice steady. What? How dare you say something like that? Such insolence. My mother-in-law snapped, her face twisting with indignation. I suppose it's because your job isn't doing you any good. I'll have to make sure you quit, she declared, crossing her arms. What are you talking about? What right do you have to make me leave my job? I asked, disbelief washing over me. You'll see. I'll show you what happens when you cross me, she hissed, her voice sharp and threatening, before storming out of the house. I thought she was bluffing. Little did I know, I was about to find out just how serious she was. My name is Tina. I'm 30 years old and work in an office. I married my husband, Harvey, just 3 months ago. Harvey and I met years ago when we were colleagues at the same company. At first, I struggled to adjust to my job and didn't see him as anything more than a coworker. Eventually, he was transferred to a different department, and we rarely saw each other. About a year ago, a project brought us back together. It involved several departments, and we ended up on the same team. Seeing him again after so long, I noticed how much more confident and attractive he had become. He handled his work exceptionally well, and I found myself drawn to him. The project was a success, and after spending time together, we started going out for drinks. One thing led to another, and we became closer. After 6 months of dating, he proposed, and we got married. I thought our married life would be as enjoyable as our time dating, but I was wrong. Problems began almost immediately, most of them stemming from my mother-in-law. Before we got married, she seemed pleasant enough, but that changed the moment we tied the knot. She started coming to our house almost every day. While it's true that my in-laws live nearby, her constant visits felt intrusive. To make matters worse, she wasn't coming over to see her son. She was there to criticize and bully me. My husband works in a busier department than I do and comes home about 3 hours later than I do. Usually come home first to prepare dinner, which is precisely when my mother-in-law shows up. Tina, I'm tired of waiting. That be it already. She barked from the doorstep. Once inside, she wasted no time. What are you cooking today? Let me see your shopping bags, she demanded, rifling through them without waiting for my permission. She barged in without hesitation and began unpacking the ingredients I had bought, laying them out on the table. What are you doing? I asked, my irritation evident. What are you going to make today? She pressed. I was thinking of making rosado, Harvey's favorite dish, I replied. Rosado? You're feeding him a one-dish meal like that? She sneered, her tone dripping with disdain. What? Is there something wrong with that? I asked defensively. You should be making him more dishes, grilled vegetables, seared salmon, a fresh salad. Make lots of side dishes like that, she instructed, as though she were my superior. I do make more dishes when I can, but I was busy at work today, I explained, trying to stay calm. Busy? I don't want to hear excuses. And frankly, it's not right for you to still be working after getting married, she snapped. Do you really think that in this day and age? I asked incredulously. Huh? Are you challenging me? You're such a smartass. Don't worry, I'll fix that attitude of yours, she fumed. If I dared to argue, her retorts would escalate, so I stayed silent. After hurling more abusive comments, she left just in time for my husband to come home. "Oh, Harvey will be back soon. I'll see you tomorrow," she said with a smug smirk before walking out the door. What a joke. Why should I have to come home after a long day at work to deal with my mother-in-law? Yet, true to her word, she showed up the next day, and the day after that. I realized that if I didn't take action, she might actually come over every single day. I decided to work late and leave the office at the same time as my husband. Unfortunately, my department had just finished its busy season, and my boss encouraged everyone to leave on time. Without the option of overtime, I began killing time at a cafe. However, after a few days, I realized the cost of coffee was adding up. Spending extra money, coming home late, and still preparing dinner wasn't sustainable or fair to me. Why should I have to avoid my own home? One evening, I decided enough was enough. I came home on time, determined to confront her. Sure enough, she was waiting at the front door. "I guess you finally gave up," she said with a smirk. "You tried to avoid me by coming home late, but it doesn't matter. I'll be here every day. Give up and take the beating." She was the type of person who thrived on making others miserable. As usual, she rifled through my shopping bag, finding something to criticize. "How many times have I told you? A wife shouldn't keep a job. That's why you can't have kids," she accused. "Isn't that none of your business?" I shot back, my patience wearing thin. "What are you talking about? You're too stressed at work to get pregnant. Besides, there's something called fertility activities. Some people even take time off work for that," she retorted. "With all due respect, if I can't get pregnant because of stress, it's not from work. It's from you," I replied firmly. "What? You're such a cheeky woman. It must be because your job isn't doing you any good. I'll make sure you quit," she snapped. "What are you talking about? What right do you have to make me quit my job?" I asked, exasperated. "You'll see. I'll show you what happens when you cross me," she threatened, storming out. I thought she was bluffing, but I was wrong. A few days later, my boss called me into his office. "Tina, is it true you want to quit your job?" he asked. "Excuse me?" I replied, completely confused. "Your mother-in-law came by earlier. She said the stress from work was too much for you and you wanted to quit, but you couldn't bring yourself to talk to anyone about it," he explained. "That's absolutely not true. I love this job and have no intention of quitting," I said quickly. He looked at me with concern. "Are you sure?" "There's something wrong. You could always talk to me." "Thank you, but everything is fine," I reassured him. By then, I had reached my limit. That evening, I went straight home, where my mother-in-law was waiting with her usual smug grin. "What's going on, Mother?" I asked. "Oh, did your boss mention our little chat? Did you finally understand what happens when you challenge me?" she said, her grin widening. I glared at her. "Yes, I understand perfectly, that you're a very bad-natured person," I replied coldly. Her expression darkened. "How dare you talk to me like that? Divorce my son right now and leave," she demanded. "Fine, I'll get a divorce," I said calmly, turning to leave. I went straight to the city office to pick up divorce papers and then called my husband, asking him to meet me at a cafe. When he arrived, I explained everything. I have something to show you, I said, pulling out my phone. I recorded some of her comments. He listened to the recordings, his face growing grim. Seriously, Mom? He muttered, shaking his head. We immediately went to the city office and filed for divorce. Afterward, we went together to confront his mother at her house. What's going on with you and Tina? My mother-in-law asked, her curiosity poorly disguised. Let me in, my husband said. Together, we stepped into the living room. What's the matter? She asked, her tone laced with feigned innocence. Harvey, my father-in-law said, turning to my husband, I have something important to tell you. What about? My husband replied, leaning forward. We just filed for divorce, my husband said plainly. What? Oh my God, my father-in-law exclaimed, visibly shocked. He stared at my husband in disbelief, while my mother-in-law glanced at me with a smug grin. What the hell happened? I can't believe you're suddenly divorced, my father-in-law said, his voice tinged with frustration. My mother-in-law shrugged nonchalantly. Calm down, Dax. There must have been some kind of rift that only a couple can understand. Harvey and his wife are adults, so we should respect their decision, she said with a smirk. But my husband's next words wiped the grin off her face. I said we filed for divorce, but we remarried immediately afterward. I also decided to take the last name Watson, which is Tina's last name, he explained. Her face turned pale. Oh, what do you mean? She stammered. I think you know exactly what I mean, my husband said, his glare piercing. I don't understand what you're talking about, she replied, feigning innocence. You've been harassing Tina ever since we got married, my husband said coldly. What? That's not true. Where's the proof? She demanded. Here it is, I said, pulling out my voice recorder and holding it up for them to see. Her eyes widened in disbelief. No way. You were recording me. My mother-in-law exclaimed. You look upset all of a sudden, Mother, I said mockingly. What's going on? My father-in-law asked, looking back and forth between us. My husband took the recorder from me and pressed play. As the audio played, my father-in-law's face flushed red with anger. What the hell is this? What have you been doing? He snapped at his wife. No, I'm sorry, she cried, desperate to explain herself. I'm sorry too, but I don't want to share your last name anymore, my husband said firmly. Dad, I'm sorry it had to come to this. His father sighed deeply. What can you do? Honestly, I'd do the same thing if I were you, he said, shaking his head. I don't want to see you anymore, Mother, my husband declared. I'm cutting you out of my life. No. Don't cut me off. Please forgive me, she sobbed. I'm sorry, but I can't forgive someone who caused so much pain to the person I love, my husband said, standing up. Tina, let's go, he said, holding out his hand. Okay, I replied, taking his hand as we left the house together. The reason we were able to remarry immediately after filing for divorce was that we had already been married to each other. Normally, it takes 6 months to remarry someone else, but we were told the process is expedited if it's the same person. After the remarriage, we moved into an apartment closer to work, leaving the past behind. My father-in-law made it a strict condition that my mother-in-law could not contact us again. If she did, he would divorce her immediately. Being a stay-at-home mom her entire life, my mother-in-law couldn't risk divorce, as she had no means to support herself. She had no choice but to comply, which felt like justice after all she had done. A year later, free from her toxic presence, I became pregnant. Perhaps the stress she caused was the reason I couldn't conceive before. When our baby was born, we maintained contact only with my father-in-law. He was overjoyed to meet his grandchild and seemed genuinely happy. As for my mother-in-law, I have no plans to see her ever again. My husband and I are committed to supporting each other and watching our child grow up in a loving, stress-free environment.